If you're younger than the consent age, viewer discretion is advised.
The time has come for people to realize the system is dead. All that is promised, all that is said, nothing is done, nothing is respected.
For the 40 years of those of the 63 years we've been born as a nation, almost 2/3 of our independence life, a single man, Yoweri Museveni, and his military political machine have held our country in the vice grip. You know, this guy called Museveni presented himself as the liberator, the cure to the disease of the stomach. But as I do this show for the last 4 decades, or 4 decades later, we are now seeing the tragic truth. What this guy was meant to be even from the start. Museveni's presidency is built on a foundation of blood. I know you know that. And its pillars are the ghosts of those people that have been murdered, starting from the Luwero War. In Museveni's Uganda, to hold a different political opinion is to risk a death sentence. The colonizer's face has changed, but the essence, the styles of oppression have remained the same. We exchanged a white master for a black one, and in many ways, the new one has proven to be more ruthless. You know, the colonials will not hear some of the words, but we have a black colonial master now who knows our culture, who has seen it all. At his age, he knows how to plunder and still quote the idioms of the same people he's plundering from. It has not discarded the colonial manual. Museveni found those cheats of governance that the whites used, and it is the manual he's using. He is not even using the old tactics. Actually, he has updated the old manual, the colonial manual. Not only updating it, this guy has perfected it and implemented it with a chilling efficiency that would have even impressed our colonial masters. Uganda's profound underdevelopment is not an accident of history. It is not a curse from God like people who are short of solutions think. What did we do Uganda to deserve 40 years of one man without progress? It is not the fault of even the people of our country. I want to tell you that Ugandan people are among the most resilient and the most hardworking people on earth. But you see, our poverty, our pain, the stagnation of our country is a direct, calculated, and an inevitable result of a system of bad governance. If you don't know, a system of military rule, a system of institutionalized corruption, a system of a brutal suppression and a tribalistic dictatorship that has systematically cannibalized the state for the benefit of one man, his family, and a small group of a connected clique. Now the solution is clear, and the solution rests in our hands. First, we must recognize that the primary obstacle of Uganda's development is the person Yoweri Museveni. Yes, you must agree. Museveni and his entire system of governance is the obstacle to development that you all long for. Now I'm here to tell you, Museveni's removal from power is not just a political desire. It is a national imperative, the first and most crucial step towards our recovery as a nation. We must break down the tribal walls the regime has built, and we must stand together as one people with one destiny. Do you really come to realize that Museveni is the architect of failure? He's the guy who has brought endless tribalism, corruption. is a guy who has suppressed every brain that has come out to create change. If you're not from his family, you're not allowed to think. You are not supposed to have an opposite idea on how things should be. And some fool comes to tell you that, you see, the vision is the only vision bearer. Hey, my friend. The Baganda say, atanaita itayatenda nyino kufumba. But let me tell you, all the things have been done to us. But there is that Uganda where we don't fear to talk to leaders, where we don't fear the midnight knock on the door. And let me tell you, this is not a dream. What I'm saying is not a dream. It is our birthright. We were born, and this is our right. As Ugandans, you must come out to speak with one voice. And I promise you, on the other side of this struggle, there is a better life. There is a Uganda where a child in Kabongo has the same opportunity like a child in Kololo. There is a Uganda where the police are your protectors, they are not your predators. There is a Uganda where wealth of our soil, our oil, our gold, our coffee, not a personal property. It is that Uganda where these natural resources, we will build schools, we will build hospitals, we will help to develop the infrastructure that we all want. Not all of us want to become presidents. No, not at all.
Arrogant rule, the worst we've seen. Authoritarian, avoidant, chasing greed. Biased, bitter, boastful, cold, combative lies that never get old. Complacent, condescending, confusing reign, controlling minds with critical chains, cynical promises, deceitful tone, degrading the nation. We stand alone. Oyo Musaja, lakini hana huruma, mubantu twakukwata, dishonored.
Greetings, fellow Ugandans, brothers and sisters, children of the Pearl of Africa. A warm welcome to my show. My name is Kanka Emmanuel Peter. I'm a journalist by profession, specializing in investigative journalism, but part of my time I do social and political activism. I know you know that today marks the 63rd anniversary of our nation's birth, and I'm here to do a show not in celebration, but I'm here to do a solemn remembrance show for the 63 years back when our nation, the Republic of Uganda, was born. You see, I come before you to perform as a journalist one of the most painful of duties. And what is it? To hold a mirror to our nation and to stare unflinchingly at the reflection of a promise betrayed. I once again want to thank all of you that have subscribed. I kindly request those that have not subscribed to Media Choice Online Television to do so, never to miss any of my shows. I want to remind you that on the 9th day of October 1962, as Ugandans, we broke the chains of colonial bondage. We raised our heads high, filled with the intoxicating hope that the future was ours to build. The dream was simple yet profound: to be masters of our own destiny, to govern ourselves with justice, to share in abundance our land, and to live in dignity. Now, for the last 63 years, we've been a nation in waiting. Waiting for what? Waiting for a dawn that perpetually vanishes before it can even break. And let me tell you, for the 40 years of those of the 63 years we've been born as a nation, almost 2/3 of our independence life, a single man, Yoweri Museveni, and his military political machine have held our country in the vice grip. You know, this guy called Museveni presented himself as the liberator, the cure to the disease of the stomach. But as I do this show for the last 4 decades, or 4 decades later, we are now seeing the tragic truth. What this guy was meant to be even from the start. He's now the doctor himself that became the virus. Museveni has become the terminal illness our nation has to endure. Together with this NRA that started as NRA or the NRM, this government is not the solution to our past troubles. It is the very architect of our current misery, if you don't know. I'm here to do this show, like I told you, not to celebrate. I'm here to tell you the facts. The central argument I want to put before you today is Uganda's profound underdevelopment is not an accident of history. It is not a curse from God, like people who are short of solutions think, what did we do Uganda to deserve 40 years of one man without progress? It is not the fault of even the people of our country. I want to tell you that Ugandan people are among the most resilient and the most hardworking people on earth. But you see, our poverty, our pain, the stagnation of our country is a direct, calculated, and an inevitable result of a system of bad governance, if you don't know. A system of military rule, a system of institutionalized corruption, a system of a brutal suppression and a tribalistic dictatorship that has systematically cannibalized the state for the benefit of one man, his family, and a small group of a connected clique. I think in the recent example you saw how that policeman of counter-terrorism talked to a simple young girl working to make ends meet in a supermarket, how he was showing off. Can you drive such a car? You see, the guy went in a supermarket to buy a pair of condoms. He was with some lady inside the car. But the guy arrogantly went into a supermarket to buy a pair of condoms. He refused to pay 30,000. What did he do? To slap a young girl who was working to make ends meet. For you to understand why I came to do this show, I want to show you the colonial legacy reborn right now. You know, people used to say that the whites, the colonialists were too bad. But what we are seeing now is the rebirth of the colonial legacy. Like I told you, I come here as a journalist, not to celebrate, but to mirror a kind of tyranny happening in our country. When the British colonizers finally left our country, they left behind a blueprint of operation. They ruled by dividing us, by pitting tribes against a tribe. That's what is happening right now. The colonialists extracted our resources for the benefit of a distant government, a distant crown. You know, they came from British bureaucrats. I mean, the British monarchy. It was a distant crown. They started pitting one tribe against another. But while leaving our people in ignorance and poverty, for them they are working for a distant crown. They governed Ugandans with a gun, suppressing dissent with very brutal forces. Those of you who lived to see the colonialists, including MUSEVENI himself, saw how the colonialists tortured our people. But let me tell you, as Ugandans, you remember, our ancestors, our great parents fought to erase this blueprint. But what has Museveni's regime done? It has not discarded the colonial manual. Museveni found those cheats of governance that the whites used, and it is the manual he's using. He is not even using the old tactics. Actually, he has updated the old manual, the colonial manual. Not only updating it, this guy has perfected it and implemented it with a chilling efficiency that would have even impressed our colonial masters. When those whites who governed with the barrel of a gun look at what Museveni has done, they really praise him for perfecting their own blueprint, our former colonial masters. You see, the colonial gun right now has become the NRM gun. The brutality of the ex-colonial scars has been reborn in the brutality now of what you know as the SFC. The brutality you see around President MUSEVENI and his special forces, commanded by his son, is the brutality of the Askaris that were there in the colonial days. The military police and these other egalis, you know, these small gangs like the crime preventers, they are not instruments of law and order. They are instruments of personal protection for the current ruler. You know, I want, like I told you as a journalist, I want to mirror the previous situation in our current situation. If what I'm saying is wrong, you can share with me more in the comments. Or you can WhatsApp me on 0702 815959 to tell me that I'm lying. When the colonials were here, there was the colonial divide and rule. MUSEVENI today has changed it to the NRM tribalism. When the British were governing Uganda, they used artificial boundaries and ethnic favoritism. The MUSEVENI's regime has perfected this by building a state within a state. In this state within a state, military is key. Security and financial positions are reserved for the few from a specific region, if you don't know. Now, this is a style of creating a new but native colonial aristocratic rule. Of recent, MUSEVENI declared himself even a king. He equated himself to a king of a modern day. If you can read through the papers, he was giving some man and then he criticized the MPs for wanting to be like him. In his own words, he said, I'm a modern day king. Kings are the only ones who are allowed to give. And I'm giving you your own money, but you don't know. That's what he said in his own words. The colonial resource plunder has become MUSEVENI's style. In this program, I want to call it the NRM kleptocracy. The cotton and the copper that were shipped to Europe has been replaced these days. MUSEVENI normally says, my oil. His family, he calls it our oil, our gold, our coffee. When you pay taxes, he says, my taxes. But now, with the cotton and copper that were shipped by the Europeans to Europe, it has now changed. MUSEVENI has reversed it. He's now shipping our money to private banks. He's now using the money for luxurious estates of the new ruling class. I think you as Ugandans, you know who owns the estates you're seeing. You know, when MUSEVENI went to pick up nomination papers for his 7th non-interrupted term, he boasted of that area, Rweza, having now rising buildings. And then he said he tasked his media team, the NRM team, to get satellite images of how the region was before he came for that nomination. Even, I don't know what he was doing, he said, you can blame the SC for the Electoral Commission for campaigning for me, but look around. Little did he know that we know who owns those estates. Now, as the colonials used to plunder our country of natural resources, taking them to feed a regime that was far away from us, MUSEVENI has changed the style. He's feeding the accounts, offshore accounts, of the current dictators, the current colonial, native colonialists right now. You see, the colonizer's face has changed, but the essence, the styles of oppression have remained the same. We exchanged a white master for a black one, and in many ways, the new one has proven to be more ruthless. I know he knows the language, you know. When the oppressor knows how to oppress you in your own language, you know what happens. he knows our cultures, and he uses the same intimate knowledge to a more effective subjugation of our own people. When Museveni is plundering the country, he uses the same own proverbs, idioms. He plays around with our language and how effective that can be. You know, the colonials will not hear some of the words, but we have a black colonial master now who knows our culture, who has seen it all. At his age, he knows how to plunder and still quote the idioms of the same people he's plundering from. Now, Uganda has become a graveyard of dreams. I want to tell you, there is some saying I was reading somewhere, and someone said that if you want to know where the real dreams are, go to the graveyard. People die with unfulfilled dreams. Those graveyards you see are full of dreams unfulfilled. But for the case of Uganda, let me take you through a litany of political murders. When the whites were here in our country, you know, when you would talk, they would take you to prison, they would kill you. But our black colonialists right now, I can give you an endless list of political murders. You know, a regime that fears its own people is a regime that kills its own people. Museveni's presidency is built on a foundation of blood. I know you know that. And its pillars are the ghosts of those people that have been murdered, starting from the Luwero War. Now, to speak of progress under such a regime is to spit on the graves of those that are fallen. For us, we choose now to remember them. I heard one government official claiming that journalists have become activists. Who says, you know, a journalist is allowed to see what is not going right in their community, and he joins the community to remove it. That's why we choose to become activists. But however much journalism is a job, we still remain citizens of Uganda that love their country so much. Now, let me take you through that. If you don't remember, the blood, the graveyard, a regime that has killed its own people, Museveni's foundation is a foundation of blood. If you don't want to talk about that, it's like you're spitting on the grave of the fallen people. This list I'm about to give you is not an exhaustive list, but a painful echo of the state's terror. Let me start with 1989 to 1990 massacre of the Uganda People's Army UPA in Bukedia and Bugisu, where thousands of civilians were killed. The people who were killed by that time were suspected of supporting UPA, and these were systematically killed by the NRA in what was a clear policy of collective punishment. Now when you see this Anita Among bragging on a foundation of blood, you may think the people of Lango don't remember that is systematic style of punishing them collectively for supporting UPA. Anita Among thinks that by driving Mercedes-Benzes, all the people do not remember what happened. When I take you to 1991, 1992, the pacification of the northern part of Uganda, you see, the National Resistance Army's action in Acholi and Lango lands under the guise of fighting the Holy Spirit movement of Alice Lakwena and later the Lord Resistance Army was a constituted genocide. All these actions constituted a genocide. I think those people from northern Uganda, you can bear me witness. You can seriously write in the messages and tell me whether I'm lying or not. Massacres in villages like Makwin, Abia, Lokung, Olatiak in 1995, sorry if I did not pronounce them well, hundreds of civilians, including women and children, were slaughtered. And these, since that time, have left a festering wound. The cry of the mother in Atiak, if I may quote those of you who follow history, the mother cried like saying, "You killed my son, you killed my daughter." And this mother's cry of the time was the cry of the entire region. Now let me take you to 1996. The murder of Brigadier Andrew Frederick Kagenda, a former NRA officer, found dead under mysterious circumstances, widely was believed to be an assassination for his growing influence. In 2001, the murder of Sister Maria Clementine and others in Paimola, Gago district. These people were killed by the UPDF soldiers for protesting looting of their animals. If you don't want to be reminded, of course, as journalists, that's what we choose to do these days. I had someone complaining, journalists have become activists. Journalists are Ugandans. They are citizens who love their country. Let me tell you, in November 2001, there were protests called the Walk to Work. Dozens of unarmed protesters, including children, were shot dead by security forces for demonstrating against rising fuel and food prices in our country. Not to forget, that was 2001. Just a few years, in 2009, the Kayunga protests, where over and above 40 people were killed by security forces during the Kabaka protests. I think you remember the Kabaka protests. September 2009, there was the Mukula massacre. The NRA locked over 70 people in a railway wagon and left them to suffocate and burnt them to death. I told you, for these 63 years we've been independence, 40 of these 63 years have been under tyranny, under the leadership of one tyrant. And if you are to forget history, that would be a very grave mistake that you are doing. Let me carry you to 2010. In 2010, the Kasubi tomb fires and subsequent killings. When the tombs of the Kasubi burnt, protesters were met with live bullets. Imagine adding political murders to cultural desecration. The tomb is being burnt, history is being erased, and the political murders start. As if that is not enough, I want to remind you Ugandans. In 2012, the murder of Muslim clerics started. That was the start of the murder of Muslim clerics. A string of assassinations of Muslim leaders, including Sheikh Mustafa Bahiga, Sheikh Abdul Shakur Sentongo, all those were killings. And remember, since the 2012, these have never been brought to justice. And all of them point to what? State sponsorship, state orchestrated murders, state sponsored. Let's come to 2016. I'm taking you through history. 2016, the Kasese massacre. This was one single brutal act of state terror in our recent memory. It happened on the November 26, 2016, when the Ugandan army stormed the palace of the Renzululu king, King Charles Wesley Mumbere, and killed over 150 people, including children, women, and royal guards. They were burned alive, shot at a point-blank range, and their bodies were desecrated. You see, this was not a military operation. It was an ethnic cleansing, if you don't know. This was a serious ethnic cleansing. In 2017, the murder of the Assistant Inspector of Police Andrew Felix Kaweesi, a high-profile assassination that even currently remains shrouded in mystery, with many believing it was an inside job to eliminate a potential rival, or eliminating someone who knew too much. That's what we know. And as journalists, this is our job. If you're one of journalists who refuses to research about this history, shame upon you. That will be upon you, but not to journalists like us. I, for one, Kaka Emmanuel Peter, I choose to work, to use my platform for the benefit of Ugandans, not for a daily survival. That's not what I do. All of you remember that Andrew Felix Kaweesi, the inside noise says, he was yet to take over from Kale Kayihura. And I think from all that he knew, it looks like maybe it was an inside job to eliminate a potential rival, or to eliminate someone who knew much about things that were going on, including the murders. In 2018, this I remember very well, Muhammad Chirumira was one of my friends, personal friends as a journalist. I remember him when he was taken to this disciplinary committee. He used to call me and ask for something small. Muhammad Chirumira, he was a poor guy. He used to help us when I used to live in Nansana. So he called me as an old friend wherever he would find. You know, we are men. We get challenges financially. But in 2018, Muhammad Chirumira was murdered. You remember this was another outspoken officer gunned down months after being dismissed from the police force. And you know what he was talking about was the truth. And I heard the rumors that before he was murdered, he had a strange meeting with President Museveni. Probably after speaking too much, something happened after. I want to take you straight to the recent history of the November 2020, the protests that were targeting freeing Bobi Wine. Following the arrest of Kyagulanyi, security forces acting on a shoot-to-kill orders of Tumwine murdered over 54 innocent civilians in the streets. In a matter of just a few days, 54 Ugandans lost their lives under the tyranny. Now, what else do you compare with the colonial rule? The current dictator is our own, someone who speaks our language, someone who knows our cultures and knows how to handle the killings locally. In November 2020, people protested after Bobi Wine was violently bundled and arrested by just opposing the regime and speaking the truth of the things that hurt us as Ugandans. What ensued was a shoot-to-kill order. And you know who does the orders? No Ugandan police officer, no Ugandan army officer does anything outside the command of the commander-in-chief. You bear me witness. That has not happened in Uganda. Now, who eliminated those people? If the shoot-to-kill order came out, and you know who was in charge by that time? This is very recent. In our country, in just a matter of days, above 56 people, 54 and above people, were shot and killed on the streets. Now, what do these symbols show you? Of course, these are symbols of brutality. The continuous pattern of abductions and extrajudicial killings, names of those that have been killed in such a style, they form an endless, and in our heads they form a grim roll call. We can remember Abiriga Jovan. We can remember Ibrahim Abiriga. We can remember Semwogerere, Sebaiganu, and even countless others, Ugandans. The network of safe houses where torture and murder are routine has become a permanent feature of Museveni's state, because this is now becoming Museveni's state. Now, this list I'm giving you, the small list, non-exhaustive list, is a testament to a simple but horrifying truth. In Museveni's Uganda, to hold a different political opinion is to risk a death sentence. Once you hold a different political opinion, you're a candidate for poison. You're a candidate for anything. So long as you lose your life, he doesn't care. Whichever rudimentary styles, he eliminates you. You see, now, in a country where the ballot box is rigged, and you see a protest of right things is met with the bullets, you cannot call this governance. It is a criminal enterprise masquerading as a government. This is a criminal gang. They are just masquerading as a government every 5 years, trying to masquerade as democratic governance. This is just masquerading. You see, as our people are being killed, elsewhere the world is moving on. Think about it, Ugandans. What Uganda could have been without the tyrant of Museveni in the 40 years. We have been trapped in this cycle of tyranny. We are into stagnation. But remember, the world has not waited for us. The world is moving on. Elsewhere, the world is moving. And you see, in this program, I want us to look at nations in the span of a single generation, 30 years, that have achieved what we have failed to achieve in 63 years. When I'm mentioning this, you might think elsewhere in the world it is all the same. No. As this regime is concentrating on eliminating its own people and consolidating themselves on the graves, the world is continuing and developing. And we need to enumerate those cases where, in a span of 30 years, of the 63 years that Uganda has been independent, let me give you a few examples, a few of those countries that have succeeded. And I'll give you some examples from Africa. You see, in Botswana got independence in 1966. It was one of the world's most poorest nations. Now, through consistent governance, zero tolerance for corruption, and prudent management of its diamond resources, it has now transformed into a stable, high middle income country. Now, their leaders like Kama and Masire, I remember he was called Kweit Masire, served their people, not their pockets like what we are seeing in Uganda. Just with our immediate neighbors, Rwanda. While many of you Ugandans who are watching my show, you may critique the political space in Rwanda, but we cannot deny that these guys have made tangible progress. From the ashes of a genocide just recently in 1994, Rwanda has built impressive infrastructure. Rwanda has championed the technology. It has ensured cleanliness and security. And that is to the shame of a country, Uganda. That is to the shame of our country, Uganda. Rwanda's style of leadership, however much you may criticize it, it shows decisive, focused leadership that can deliver development. Even if maybe political freedoms are constrained, but at least it is still the same thing in Uganda. There is no political freedom, but there is nothing happening. At least we would say that, oh, there is no political freedom, but at least there is development. Nothing is happening. But when you look at Uganda versus our neighbors, Rwanda puts us to shame. Museveni has actually delivered neither development nor freedom. No freedom at all. You know where I'm speaking from? I'm speaking from a secure United Arab Emirates. Highly secure. This is a country where there are the lowest levels of crime rate. And this is a country where I have not met someone calling himself chairman, defense, security. I have not seen. Actually, one day I was moving in Deira when the ruler of Dubai just passed in his own car, not with motorcades, thousands, hundreds of vehicles after him. The guy drove himself, conversing in the middle of the streets. None of us cared. He was not scared at all. If I was speaking this in Uganda, by morning time, my children would have suffered a blow for their father's words. It has happened. That's why even I ran away. Imagine. Now from the Rwandan examples, let me even quote the examples of where I am right now, in the Middle East. The United Arab Emirates, in 1971, it was a collection of desert sheikdoms. I'll call them sheikdoms. The sheikhs of this place. In 1971, it was a collection of deserts. Sheikhs had sheikdoms here. But I'm talking about 1971. Uganda had already gained independence. Today, right now, as I speak, I'm speaking from a high-rise tower at the 50th floor, actually. This United Arab Emirates has become a global hub of trade, tourism, and innovation. They have turned the sand into skyscrapers. They have invested oil revenues into building a diversified modern economy. We, Ugandans, with our fertile soils, vast resources, gold everywhere, flowing everything, natural resources, not the sand like the UAE they have here. We have turned our pearl into a pauper. Now, the UAE's leadership, the United Arab Emirates leadership, especially Dubai, where I am right now, has had a vision for their people. They have a vision for their people. For us, we are here scavenging on the abundant opportunities they have created for their own nation. But you know what has happened in our country? Our leadership has a vision for itself. For them, they say, our everything, our oil, our everything. Museveni went to Masaka, where I was born, at some Juma prayers one Friday. He says, you know, some people are saying that Museveni should go. Those people want to take my oil. My oil? Now, as I move away from the United Arab Emirates, of course, miracles have happened here. Let me just quote a few examples I learned from the University of the Asian Tigers when I was studying some economics in, by then it was called the Faculty of Economics, FEMA. In Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew took a small resource-poor island, and in 30 years, the guy turned it into an economic powerhouse. Lee Kuan Yew is a serious example in modern economic achievement times. Almost all of you know that name from development, not from tyranny, like what we are receiving in Uganda for 63 years. You know, someone told me, someone sent me a message and told me, you look good in that beret. No, I don't look good in this beret. I look good for the misery. I'm looking good like this. You think about if our country was a good country, how would I look like? Let me tell you, when Lee Kuan Yew took a small resource-poor island, for the last 30 years, he has transformed it. But how? The guy eradicated corruption with an iron will. He built a system where merit was everything and connection was nothing. That is what we are lacking in our country. In Uganda, connection is everything. You can't do anything without being connected. But Lee Kuan Yew built a system that was based on merit. I think all of you subscribers to this channel, you see that if you compare me to other YouTube channels, I have at least made a step. My videos are well organized, they are edited well, the sound is clear. But I'm not getting good views because in our country, they don't, no one pays you for merit. You are actually killed for doing good things. But Lee Kuan Yew changed that, and connection meant nothing to the nation's involvement. The anti-corruption agency in Singapore had the power to investigate anyone from a street sweeper to a prime minister. You know what the former IGG, not this former one, not this recent one, Betkamya, but the first one, Mulyagonja. That statement, I know you remember when she said that thieves hide behind Museveni. It made the national news. What has Betty Kamya suffered? She came and told us, you know, corruption affects the poor. For us who rove in V8s, we are not concerned. We'll call Museveni and Museveni gives us private jets to go elsewhere. Corruption affects you. You remember that popular speech of now, the sidelined IGG. I'm not telling lies, I'm telling you facts. If you don't want to remember facts, that will be forsaking your country. You are taking your country to the dogs. The anti-corruption in Lee Kuan Yew's government, the Singapore story, even the street sweeper would be investigated up to the Prime Minister. Now in our country, in the office of the Prime Minister, the big wigs stole iron sheets, broad daylight. Investigated, nothing is done. The poor people of Karamoja, the simple iron sheets like this, they were stolen by the current regime. What did Museveni do? To add positions to these people. He's normally praising Nabanja, whoever stole iron sheets, just a chosen few. Rugolobi is still there, but these small flies, the Nandutu, were forsaken. All those that stole iron sheets are on the list, including the one that presides over our current parliament, Anita Among. Imagine Kasaija saying, blatantly saying when he was called to explain how iron sheets landed in his compound, he says, I don't know, maybe the iron sheets flew to my compound. Can you imagine? Someone says, iron sheets that were stolen, the common people's iron sheets. He says, I don't know, I just saw them there. I don't know how they flew. I think they walked to my compound. He walked out scot-free. That's the nation I'm talking about, Ugandans. If you don't know, in Uganda, the anti-corruption agencies are a joke. They are used to punish the regime's enemies, and they are used to protect. When you're a friend of the regime, like Anita Among, you are protected. Now let me take you to an example of South Korea. In South Korea, after emerging from a devastating war in 1953, it became a global leader in technology and industry. Remember, there was the devastation of the 1953 war. But right now, what is happening in South Korea? The world leaders in technology. They invested heavily in education. They empowered their conglomerates. They call them chaebols. I think they call them chaebols. Chaebols, I think, but I don't know. That's what I remember, chaebols. And this was a strategy to compete globally. But you see, in our country, we have invested in patronage. And we have empowered our military to suppress its own people. Instead of investing in human capital, Museveni is investing in a military. If you can't see this, then I wonder what you may be thinking. Let me give you examples like the giant right now of the world's economy, China. 1978, China was poorer than most African nations. You may think I'm joking. 1978, we got our independence, 1962, 9th October. But 1978, China as a country was poorer than most of African nations. Now, through a combination of authoritarian control, a visionary economic plan, China has lifted nearly 800 million people out of poverty. And it has become the world's second largest economy. It prioritized infrastructure, it prioritized manufacturing, and it prioritized education at a colossal scale, very large scale. Chinese came out and went to school. They did not study cram work like what we are doing in Uganda, under the guise of Mama Wegwanga, mother of the nation. Imagine. Chinese prioritized 1978. Now, the common thread running through all the success stories is governance. You may say, you see, you're talking about leaders, but let me tell you, there is nothing good that can happen when the leadership is bad. Nothing good can happen to a nation with bad leadership. There is only one common thing, one common thread happening in all these success stories that I've been giving you in examples, is called governance. And governance is not the absence of challenges. No. Governance is not about cleaning the opposition, that before you bring development to people, you are not the citizens are not supposed to talk about the shortcomings. Before anything, you should first deal with the opposition to make sure that you reach development. No, not at all. Development is not about the absence of challenges, but the presence of a national vision that transcends the selfish interests of a single ruler. Those of you who agree with me, you can send me texts on WhatsApp. You can help me to improve. You know, when I started doing presentation way back, like 10 years back, people used to criticize my presentation. They said I was a yes person. I admit I was a poor presenter, but I was learning. I think for all the things you have taught me, you people, all the way back from ABS TV up to where I am right now on YouTube and online platforms, you have given me the knowledge and you have given me the strength to know that issues that concern people are more important than comedy. That's why I have organized myself even to make English speeches, to make sure that all of you understand this message. Now let me tell you, selfish leaders are the cause of what you're seeing in Uganda. You see, to develop a country is about leadership that is accountable, that invests in its own people, that fights corruption relentlessly, and leaders that harness the national resources for the benefit of the nation, not their own personal gain. But what do we have in Uganda? What we have, you bear me witness, is the exact opposite. Our national resources are treated as private properties for the first family. Our national army is a private militia. Our national budget is a feeding trough. It is a bucket, it's a feeding bucket. Our national vision begins and ends with Museveni must stay in power. That is the vision. You know, some NRM guys, for them, you see, their small brain is telling them that, that the vision of Uganda starts with Museveni and it ends there. See, look at that stupidity. When the citizen of the Republic of Uganda admits even on national television, on social platforms, that you see, our nation cannot be there without Museveni. That's what these people think. A tyrant who has kept their brains so low, they admit to surrendering their understanding to a dictator. Can we imagine? Do you really come to realize that Museveni is the architect of failure? He's the guy who has brought endless tribalism, corruption. He's the guy who has suppressed every brain that has come out to create change. If you're not from his family, you're not allowed to think. You are not supposed to have an opposite idea on how things should be. And some fool comes to tell you that, you see, the vision is the only vision bearer. Hey, my friend. The Baganda say atanaita itayatenda nyino kufumba. Simply translated, loosely translated, is that if you've not eaten at the neighbors, you think that your mother is the king of all people who can cook. Is the king chef. Because you have not tasted Many of you who have moved to other nations, you have seen people progressing. As our country is stunted with the endless thinking of without Museveni, the country cannot move, the world is not waiting for us. For them, they are progressing. And Ugandans are crying, they are scampering for opportunities, running outside the country where they would have had the chance. Don't you think that it would have been good if I used these speeches to change all people within my age? But I'm on the run. Because some bank never wanted me to speak about how they are stealing from people. A bank from the first family. Let me tell you how the Museveni's regime has maintained its stronghold. It has maintained its grip on power through a deliberate and sophisticated architecture of control. Tribalism and nepotism has become a state policy in Uganda. Now let me tell you, Uganda is becoming the Museveni's restaurant. The Museveni's restaurant. And inside Museveni's restaurant, he has a strict guest list. Museveni has a strict guest list. You must be from the right region, the right district, and the right clan to eat from Museveni's restaurant called Uganda. Now let me tell you, the command of the army, the police, the intelligence, and the Uganda Revenue Authority are a family and a tribal affair. Bear me witness or do research if you're not good at research. What you're seeing in Uganda is not a government of national unity. It is a tribal junta. It has created a toxic environment where merit is sacrificed at the altar of ethnic royalty. Now this has crippled civil service, our military, and the entire state apparatus is being crippled. Quote me right. Uganda today is Museveni's restaurant. And Museveni has a strict guest list. You must come from a certain tribe, a certain clan, a certain region to qualify for Uganda Revenue Authority job, to be a detective, to be someone in the CID. What you're seeing in Uganda is a tribal affair. Now let me tell you about corruption as an economic model. In the 63 years Uganda has been independent, Museveni mastered corruption as an economic model. You remember in majority of his speeches what he said, you know, I leave the corrupt because when they steal, they build buildings here. Don't scare them too much, they will run away with our money. Now Museveni thinks corruption is an economic model. To Museveni, corruption is not a side effect of his rule. It is an engine. All those examples that I have enumerated, they realized that plundering national resources for personal gain is a side effect to a country's development, actually a negative side effect. But to Museveni, it is just something, it's just like I have termed it as an economic model. It's an economic engine to run his nation. You know, he has personalized the nation called Uganda. From the Global Fund scandal, if you remember, to the Temangalo scandal, to the Chogam scandal, to the plan of the pension funds, to the mysterious disappearance of billions of oil revenue, the story is the same. I have not to mention but a few. Can you imagine even the army that has sustained his rule? You remember how the soldiers were complaining about their salaries. Museveni even steals from his own clan. Now, all those scandals starting from the Gavi, all those people have made it back to his government, and they are the darlings of his economic model called corruption. He likes them so much. The story is the same. The story is systematic. It is the grand root, the grand, I call it the grand lesson, I think. This corruption is not about stolen money. It is about stolen futures, stolen past of the Ugandans for the last 40 years. Of the 63, we came from colonial rule. Now, this is the single reason why our hospitals have no drugs, why our schools have no roofs, students or pupils are studying under trees, and why all of the roads in Uganda, except those now that are going to his tribe regions, all our roads are death traps. Uganda has one of the highest levels of road carnage, accidents. You know, when people come out to talk about Museveni's regime, he suppresses them. Now, this extreme suppression of political opponents, we have seen it time and again. The opposition candidates are arrested on trumped-up charges. Their rallies are blocked with the military force. Their supporters are intimidated. Many of them are arrested. Some of them are killed. And as you may remember, in the recent 2021 election, it was not even an election. It was a military coup dressed in civilian clothing. Those of you who remember what happened in the recent 2021 election, the internet was shut down. Hundreds of people were abducted and tortured. And the final result was the declaration before votes were even counted. before even votes could be counted. Already the Abakaba was declaring a win of an election. And let me tell you guys, you think this is a democracy? This is a dictatorship with an electoral facade. Now, this is the inevitable dawn. In this show, I want to dwell on a promise of redemption. Fellow Ugandans, like I told you, my brothers and sisters, children of the Pearl of Africa, this video is not an epitaph for our nation. It is a diagnosis of a disease, and with this diagnosis comes the hope of a cure. The regime wants us to feel helpless, to believe that this is our eternal fate forever and ever. And I'm here to tell you that is not true. The night is always the darkest, but just before the dawn, and our dawn is coming. Now the solution is clear, and the solution rests in our hands. First, we must recognize that the primary obstacle of Uganda's development is the person Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Yes, you must agree. Museveni and his entire system of governance is the obstacle to development that you all long for. Now I'm here to tell you, Museveni's removal from power is not just a political desire. It is a national imperative, the first and most crucial step towards our recovery as a nation. Now, second, we must build a broad, united, and unwavering front for change if you want things to change. The struggle is not for one party or for one tribe. You see, I'm donning this NUP, but I understand clearly that the struggle to liberate ourselves from Museveni and his dictatorship is not a thing of the NUP. No, it's not a thing of one party. Many of them dance with him. You see? It's not for one tribe that you see the Baganda. No, that is nonsense. It is for all Ugandans who believe in justice and those who believe in freedoms. We must break down the tribal walls the regime has built, and we must stand together as one people with one destiny. If you know. Let me tell you the third thing. As Ugandans, we must commit to a peaceful, persistent, and determined resistance. We must use every constitutional, non-violent, and civic means to our disposal right now, from mass mobilization to civil disobedience. And civil disobedience, I'm not saying we must be brutal, what? Civil disobedience is what will help us to reclaim our country. Our power is in the numbers of the youth. And the strength, all our unwavering resolve. We must come together as Ugandans. Let me repeat this. We must come out peaceful, persistent, but determined. You know, Museveni has mastered the art of quashing. He says, I'll crush, because he's a violent guy. You cannot risk your life to, but remember, Museveni feeds on a fearful population. You know, you fear without him, you must sacrifice your freedom. You see, for every 5 years, he must threaten you to believe that without him there is no peace. As if he's the father. He fathered all of us. You must peacefully resolve to do a civil disobedience, not as a tribe. This is not a duty of the Baganda. No. It is not the duty of the Bacholi. No. It is a duty of all of us all, including the Banyankole, the Westerners. A clique of people have come to your area and have claimed to be from there. And all of you are abandoned to be planters of natural resources. You can't be used like that. Fourth, I'm telling you my reason number 4. We must have a clear vision for the day after. Now, after Museveni, what comes? We must have a clear vision. Now, we cannot replace one tyranny with another. Let me tell you, as I have told you that leadership is one big problem, and it is one thread that has been used to weave economies that are progressing in the examples I enumerated before. To achieve what I have talked about, we need to restore term and age limits, where presidency will never again be a lifetime appointment in our country. Power will belong to people, not with the individuals. We need to demilitarize our politics. Politics must return to, politics must return to the people, and soldiers must return to the barracks and serve the nation, not as a party, NRM. We must dismantle the numerous militias and create a professional national security force that serves Ugandans, not one single person. And we must launch national truth, justice, and a reconciliation process. You know, we will exhume the truth about the killings and theft. That for sure. I want to assure you. We must exhume the truth. You know, Ugandans have wounds of how they have been losing their children to a tyranny. You know, Museveni has used other people's children as examples. You know, when you come out to talk, I'll kill you like this. Of course, I'm also a candidate of that brutality. I know by speaking this, I become a candidate of the same brutality. But I want to tell you, as Ugandans, we must launch a national truth, justice and reconciliation, as we start by exhuming the truth about the killings and theft. This is only when we shall have accountability. We will heal our wounds, not by forgetting, but by confronting our past with courage. I'm telling you. Let me tell you, it is very prudent, it is very necessary in Uganda to build a meritocratic state. Tribalism and nepotism have to be criminalized in our country. Positions must be filled by people who are the most competent and not people who are the most connected, like I told you. We must launch an economic revolution where we invest in our people, in universal quality education, and in health care. And we must support farmers, we must support entrepreneurs and our innovators, and we must ensure that Uganda's wealth benefits Ugandans, not these refugees that are in power. I'm telling you, and I'm speaking the truth. I know you want to say the same things like I'm saying, but you fear to be killed. As Ugandans, you must come out to speak with one voice. And I promise you, on the other side of this struggle, there is a better life. There is a Uganda where a child in Kabongo has the same opportunity like a child in Kololo. There is a Uganda where the police are your protectors, they are not your predators. There is a Uganda where wealth of our soil, our oil, our gold, our coffee, not a personal property. It is that Uganda where these natural resources will build schools, will build hospitals, will help to develop the infrastructure that we all want. Not all of us want to become presidents. No, not at all. I, for one, am a poor man. And what is stopping me from becoming rich or from achieving my economic goals is the brutal regime. Where you speak and you have no freedoms. Now, as a journalist, how am I going to make money out of my profession as a journalist when you are not even allowed to talk on the critical points of the country where where you can get people to trust you with business, where you can make money out of the profession? How much are Ugandan journalists paid in these televisions? Many of them are owned by the people in the regime. To do what? To suppress dissent, to make sure that you don't talk. But I want to promise you there is a Uganda where natural resources are used to develop our own infrastructure. There is a Uganda where we can agree with our leaders without fearing a midnight knock on the door. There is that Uganda. You see, this young man told the president in his face that, you see, ladies are producing kids on the floor. The other day, the so-called prime minister, the foolish Nabanja, went ahead and ordered the arrest of a journalist. But let me tell you, all those things have been done to us. But there is that Uganda where we don't fear to talk to leaders, where we don't fear the midnight knock on the door. And let me tell you, this is not a dream. What I'm saying is not a dream. It is our birthright. We were born, and this is our right. It is the Uganda that our independence heroes, like Ignatius Musazi, Benedicto Chiwanuka, and even Military Obote, because Baganda don't like Military Obote, but those are the independence heroes. This is the Uganda they fought for. It is the Uganda that was stolen from us. And it is MUSEVENI who stole it. Many of you blame Obote, what, but if you read through the lines in history, when you check those historical pictures, who of those that were there, the same people who are running the government now with their past records, they are the same people that, you know what Obote did? Obote said, when you trust MUSEVENI, you know what will happen. Obote prophesies on what will happen to Ugandans when they keep their power in MUSEVENI. And it has come to pass. Baganda don't like Obote, but I'm telling you, that is the fact. We need not to say that, we are Baganda. No. Those are the independence heroes, and those are the people that we should remember. That is what they fought for. A Uganda that was stolen from all of us. Now, MUSEVENI's tyranny is a passing cloud. Kino kire kijja kugenda, ajja kugenda, ebyo mulimba. You see, this passing cloud in the long history of our nation will go. It will not define us. Don't say this will define us. We shall reach a time when we look back at this period as our darkest night, the night that made us stronger. We shall look back at this MUSEVENI's regime and we say, this regime made us stronger. You see, the night that forged our collective will to be free. And let me tell you, the struggle is long. I want to assure you the road is hard. And I'm sure there will be sacrifices. I might be among them, those sacrifices. But we shall overcome. We need to unite. We need to organize. We need to be fearless. All of those who can speak, you need to speak the truth to power until the walls of the dictatorship come to a trembling breakdown. They can tremble and break. The dawn is inevitable. A new Uganda is coming. Like it or not, a new Uganda is coming. I'm telling you, as a prophet of the future, A new Uganda is coming. A Uganda of the people, by the people, and for the people. A Uganda where we shall at last be free. Where we shall at last be independent. I think I have spoken for more than an hour, not so? I wish to congratulate all of you Ugandans upon the 63rd birth of our nation. But I want you to keep this in your mind. The 60 years have been, 40 of those have been stolen from us by one single man and his family, and a small clique of the connected few. It is incumbent upon all of you to make this happen. No one is going to change your life, including the one I support, Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu. When he comes to power, he might gamble with a few things. You know, he's going to come to power when the state was swallowed by the tyranny. People will be traumatized. He has a long journey to change even the mindsets. But as you sit there, I want you to vision. I want you to create mental images. I want you to paint a picture inside your brain of a Uganda with peace. And this no one will create for you. You need to sit there and vision it on your own. As Ugandans, I want to tell you, it is incumbent upon each one of you to make life better for yourself and for your neighbors. No one is going to help you, including the leaders that are going to come. It is a duty for all of us. All of us. As the tyrant edges towards his natural clock, some of us, I feel good after doing this show. I feel good. God bless you. And may God bless the Pearl of Africa. My name is Emmanuel Kanka Kapita. See you in other shows. Goodbye. See you in other shows to come. Thank you for watching.
The sun rose red over Kampala Street. Drums beat heavy like a nation's heartbeat. 40 years of silence screams beneath our feet. A throne of iron, a voice of deceit.